Living in this part of West Virginia, you can't grow up without hearing the famous story of Mamie Thurman. There are quite a few versions to the story, but the one I heard growing up is this one. I'll include a link or two for the story because it's 100% true. Mamie Thurman was a beautiful woman back in 1932. Her husband Jack was a patrolman from Kentucky, and one day he got a job offer from Logan County, West Virginia. Jack jumped at the opportunity, so him and Mamie packed up everything they had and moved to Logan in hopes of laying down roots to start their family together. Jack being a patrolman back in those days, both he and Mamie got to meet some powerful people, including the mayor of Logan County. Now it's told that the mayor took a liking to Mamie, and before long, a secret affair was started between the two. Mamie was the happiest she had been in years, but her marriage to Jack was starting to crumble. They'd fight all the time, but Mamie didn't care. The mayor had filled her head and heart with talk of running away together. On June 21st, 1932, Jack and Mamie were in the biggest fight they'd ever had. Mamie couldn't take it anymore, so she tells Jack about the secret affair with the mayor. She also tells him that she's carrying the mayor's child and wants a divorce so she can have a chance at true happiness. Jack crumbles to the floor and starts crying like a 3-year-old. His heart was broken. Mamie walks to the closet, grabs her purse, and walks out the door, leaving Jack on the floor sobbing. Mamie goes straight to the mayor's office and tells him that she had finally done it. She had finally told Jack the truth about the two of them. She's smiling as she delivers the news of carrying his child. She feels so happy and free now. But when she looks at the mayor, she sees that all color has drained from his face. The mayor was shocked at what Mamie had just told him. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. Then a thought ran across his mind. His wife was the one with all the money. Without it, he'd become just a poor country boy again. There was no way he was going back to that life. Not for Mamie, and certainly not for a child she supposedly claimed was his. The mayor came toward Mamie without any warning and slapped her across the face hard. She started crying and he started screaming at her, telling her she was a damn fool for ever believing he would give up his life or his wife's money for her, or a child that she claimed to be his, when it could very well belong to Jack. He then told her he just used her and lied to her to get what he wanted from her, that he never intended to run away with her. He called her stupid and a whore. Mamie, being completely broken, walked to the door. But before she left, she turned to the mayor with tear-stained eyes and told him he would pay for what he had done to her. She didn't let him speak before she was out of the door and slamming it shut behind her. A couple hours later that day, a young boy was walking home on 22 Mine Road and discovered a dead body beside the road. He was so shocked at first he didn't know what to do except to run for help. The authorities were called and the first patrolman there rushed to the body. It was a woman he had seen before. It was Mamie. Mamie's throat had been slashed from ear to ear, after which she was shot 2 times in the left side of her head. Found with her body were her shoes, all of her jewelry, and her purse with money inside. The authorities ruled out robbery as motive for killing Mamie. Sometime later that year, her murder was blamed on a poor handyman. The authorities said that they had found enough evidence inside the handyman's home to arrest him. He was convicted of Mamie Thurman's murder, all the while screaming his innocence to everyone. Mamie's murder raised more questions than answers in the community, and it's believed that the handyman never murdered Mamie, that he was framed and used as a cover-up for the true killer. Mamie's body was sent back to her hometown, Kentucky, and to this day, no one knows for sure where exactly she's buried. Mamie Thurman's murder has grown famous as years pass, and is technically still one of Logan County's oldest unsolved mysteries to date. It is said because Mamie's real killer was never caught, that she was never at rest and haunts 22 Mine Road to this day. Some people have stories of seeing a woman walking down the road at night and stopping to give her a ride, but the woman disappears. Others say that if you stop your car beside the road where she was found and put your car in neutral, that she will push your car uphill to make her presence known. I just wonder if she is there. If she will ever tell someone what really happened on that day so many years ago. The links are in the description. Number 9. It was the summer of '97. I was 9 and scared of my own shadow, so this experience only furthered my fear of the world. My mom and I drove up from Revere, Massachusetts to Brook State Park in New Hampshire to camp. My dad was going to drive up the next morning to meet us because he had work. So everything was going normal at the campsite. We set up the tent, built the fire. All was well. It was still daylight when we noticed that the lone greasy-haired man in the campsite connected to ours was continually running and leaping onto a wooden post, then attempting to balance himself on one foot. He kept doing this over and over and over. It was odd, but we just figured he was some lonely kook and had a good laugh at his expense. My mom thought maybe he was trying out for the circus. Cut to nighttime. Absolute darkness, if not for the campfire. My mom and I were sitting and roasting our s'mores over the flames when we heard footsteps approaching from the other campsite. Out of the pines, the lone man stumbled onto our sight, and he was ghastly and ragged in the firelight. I could tell my mom was tense. She asked the stranger what he needed. "Hey," he mumbled, "I need your help at my campsite." We waited, and he didn't go on. My mom asked what he needed help with. The filthy man said, "I locked my keys in my van. I need you to come over and help me." He then looked at me and said, "Don't worry, kid. You can stay here with your fire." I remember getting goosebumps at that. My mom said, "I don't know how I can help you with your keys." "You must have a spare hanger lying around there somewhere," suggested the man. My mom told him that she didn't. The ghoulish man wouldn't let up. "Yeah, you must have a hanger lying around here somewhere. Maybe you dropped one on the ground near your tent." My mom adamantly told him she didn't have a hanger, and quickly added, "My husband will be here soon. Maybe he can help you. He's a pretty strong guy." "Yeah, right," the creep slurred, and he started to trudge away in the dark. But he turned his head and said, "Well, if you do find a hanger, come help me. I'll be here." And with that, the horrible man left. My mom and I barely slept that night. It felt removing at every sound outside the tent. Looking back, my poor mother must have stayed up through the long night, worrying a butcher knife was going to slash through the tent wall. And so, morning eventually came, and when we stepped out of the tent, we immediately saw that the lone man and his camper van were gone. Later in the day, I heard my mom exclaim. I went over to her and watched as she picked up something from the ground beside our tent. She held it between us, staring at it, not speaking. It was a metal hanger. Edit. I also found out later in life that 4 dead females were found stuffed into metal barrels in Brook State Park back in the 80s, I think. I don't remember all the details, and I may have some things mixed up. So here's the wiki page. The wiki page is linked in the description. Number 8. So, I was fired from my job last winter in retaliation for cooperating with the police and refusing to help my shady-ass employer cover up a felony, which was a bummer. Luckily, I found a great new job quickly. However, my start date wouldn't be for 2 months, because I was replacing a woman who was leaving for maternity and wouldn't be returning. I was having a rough and stressful time trying to make ends meet, because in addition to having crazy high rent due to living in a big city, I also have medical problems, and there's big bills with that. As well as I'm going to private grad school and pay off my tuition myself. I racked up a few thousand credit card debt during these months. And while I knew I could pay it back once I started working again, I was pissed and stressed out, and trying to pick up some odd jobs and temp work to try to ease the burden. I picked up a couple gigs off Craigslist. I babysat, did some tutoring, A couple things like that, mostly working with kids. I spent an entire day at an accounting firm, helping them shred boxes upon boxes of God knows what for 5 hours with just like a regular shredder. But I made $100, which was cool. One day, I found a research study. Anyways, it was supposed to be $80 for 2 hours on a Sunday morning to watch videos about something or another while they visually observed your responses. Weird, but whatever. Research studies are usually weird. Seemed like easy money. I filled out the survey monkey, which asked basic questions like age, gender, race, etc., and got an email back from some random Gmail with an invitation to participate. I show up the day of, and while the lobby of the office building I was directed to wasn't such a huge red flag, it was a plain-looking building, and a lobby empty on the weekend didn't seem too ridiculous. But as soon as I got out of the elevator, the lights were off in the hallway, and some older dude that I didn't get a great look at, but noticed was in jeans, and evidently heard the elevator ding and yelled down the hall if I was there for the study. I got a bad feeling about it all of a sudden, and I noped the fuck out immediately, and realized it was probably some sketchy shit to lure a young woman. I ran away and called the cops, and I never felt like such an idiot in all my days. Anyways, the local police followed up with me about a week later, saying they couldn't find anything off the Gmail, obviously. But the building was a soon-to-be office building. It was in the process of being leased up, but that it wasn't open yet, and nobody was supposed to be in there. They were able to check the cameras and saw a man coming in through the back door, go unlock the front lobby door in the elevator, and kind of stake out the general area of the 3rd floor that was around the unit that I was supposed to go to. Then, obviously, they saw me coming in. I think they said maybe about an hour later. But yeah, they said the camera footage was grainy, and that the security was more lax because it was pretty much an empty building, and they had no idea who the guy was, but think he's likely a construction worker, and that's probably how he was able to get in.
Number 7.
Alright, so I'm new to this sub, just found out about it today actually, and I've decided to share an experience of mine. Some background information. I'm male, 24, from Pretoria, South Africa. This occurred about 8-ish years ago. So, the area that I live in is generally okay, but it has its fair share of crime, creeps, and general other stuff. My house is one house away from this large park, really lackluster. Only a tall slide and a pair of swings. The rest is open field. So I was walking to the local spar, and in order to get there, I had to cross said park. Now, I was used to seeing shoes and other things lying randomly around, but this time was different. I found 3 whole pairs of shoes, just laying there. Looked like Cell had gone through the place. This kind of rattled me, being 15 at the time. I decided to hurry past this area, as I was getting bad vibes from it, when I felt someone grab my arm. Shocked, I whipped around to face a man, really tall, staring at me right in the face with an angry expression. I wasn't really intimidated, as I'm quite heavily built, but given the circumstances, my heart did start beating a little quicker. This guy starts ranting on to me about a whole bunch of nonsense, and try not to piss him off, I just agree with everything he says. I can remember the smell of drunk in his breath. One sentence that stood out was how he was Moses reincarnate, and I should play with myself tonight. Okay, I thought, this is starting to get creepy. I decided I had had enough, and thanked the man for the advice, before turning to walk away, not running because I didn't want to trigger whatever predatory instinct this man had. So I'm about 50 meters away from him, when he starts running towards me, tackling me down, and starts screaming in my ear,
Wake up! Wake up!
Scratching my arm with these long nails I had failed to notice, and attempted to bite my throat before breaking down into tears about how I killed him. I'm practically dying of fear and the overall oddity of the situation, when some people see what's going on and rush to get the man off of me. He doesn't even put up a fight, just lies there, crying until the police come to pick him up. Not sure what happened to him, or why those tiny clothes were there, or what could have happened to me. But all I'm saying is, Let's not meet again, sir.
Number 6.
Sorry this is confusing. I've never typed it out before. I've just spoken about it to some of my family and friends. Long-time lurker, first-time posting. A few weeks ago, I went out for a beer with a friend. I'm just going to call her M for privacy. M and I really like this beer garden in our city. It's usually a pretty mellow place. There's no formal seating, so people just sit on benches with random people. So you usually share a table with strangers. This woman came and sat at our table with us. At first, we didn't think anything of it, because like I just said, it's normal to have random people sit at your table. M was talking to me about something that happened at her job that day, and all of a sudden this woman completely interrupted her and started talking about how she hated the movie Rosemary's Baby, and went on and on about how she hated horror films. M and I weren't even talking about films whatsoever, so we were just super confused. Then, for the next 30 minutes, this woman completely self-disclosed to us. She talked about how her boyfriend abused her, and how she was running away from him, how her mother molested her, just some heavy stuff. M is a crisis counselor, so she was really trying to help this woman. But the woman kept interrupting my friend. She seemed very mentally unstable. It wasn't going to get much help from two girls at a bar. Yet eventually, we decided to leave. As we excused ourselves, the woman asked if she could give us hugs. It didn't seem weird at all because she totally self-disclosed to us, so it was understandable she wanted hugs. M and I wrote a couple of numbers to local women's shelters down, and we were about to be on our way. This woman had a huge black backpack with her, and she told us to hold on, and started pulling a bunch of shit out of it. She then said, "Come closer." I had a really bad gut feeling, so I stepped back a bit, and M stepped closer. However, we both ended up seeing this lady's gun that she'd unwrapped from a blanket and showed us. It looked like an old-fashioned pistol. The woman said she stole it from her boyfriend. Obviously, we noped the fuck out after, and didn't even say goodbye. We called the police. We heard the lady got arrested, and we thought that was that. 2 days later, I see this woman at my work. Mind you, I've never seen her until that night at the beer garden. I never told her where I worked, or my name, because she wouldn't even let us talk. I had thought that she had been arrested. Long story short, I filed another police report, and I found out that the night M and I called the police, she wasn't arrested, just detained for an hour and ran for warrants. Nothing showed up, so they let her go. There's no gun registered to her or the boyfriend. The same night she came to work, she came in again. So twice in one night. And was following me around. My bosses locked me in an office, and I was there for about 40 minutes until this woman left. I had to be escorted home. And that's basically it. She came into my work 2 more times since, but I wasn't there. The police told me I could possibly file a restraining order. However, it would have to go through the company I work for, and it's hard to get corporate degree illegal shit like that. So yeah, crazy gun lady, I hope you get the help you need, but please, let's not meet again.
Number 5.
This just happened last night to my girlfriend. I got 2 texts from her around midnight, saying someone's trying to break into her home. Now, she lives in a basement suite, with 4 other rooms. 2 are vacant. The other guy's a little odd, but he's very well mannered and is a good roommate, so I don't think it was him. Anyway, she tells that someone kept rattling her doorknob, and when she asked who was there, nobody answered. The rattling stopped, then continued again 5 minutes later. She asked again, and no response. It rattles again for another 5 minutes or so before finally stopping. She's scared, and I'm already on my way there, with the cops on the line. When I get to her place, 50 minutes later, I live south of the city she's in. I notice the side door that my girlfriend always locks is wide open, and there's a painting laying on the floor, like someone knocked it over. I have my flashlight, not wanting to turn on the main lights in case someone is there. My flashlight will blind them. I walk downstairs and check every corner and vacant room. Nothing. Nobody. I get my girlfriend and we go sit in my car. She's visibly shaken. By 3 a.m., the cops still didn't show. So I called them back and told them don't bother coming, because they're taking too long. However, nothing was stolen. Whoever it was just went straight to my girlfriend's room and tried to get in. That scares me the most. Maybe it was an old roommate, or just a person who took advantage of an open door. But whoever you are, leave her alone, or I'll deal with you.
Number 4.
So, I was walking home from school one day when I heard a voice say, "Hey, you want a job?" I turned and saw a slightly shabby-looking man in his mid-40s, about 7 feet to my right, in front of what I assumed to be a vacant home. Now, given I was an absolute idiot, I was very suspicious. I knew I wouldn't get any closer to the man, but I was a bit curious about what he was going to say for whatever reason. In a moment of pure inquisitive genius, I nervously asked, "Huh?" To which he again stated that he was willing to pay me to help him with something. I stared at him, probably looking confused and mildly unnerved. He then said, "I just want you to move some dirt to this warehouse." Now, it was at this point that I realized I really need to get away from this person.
Number 3.
Years ago, my mom told me about something that happened to her in college, and to this day, is still one of the most horrifying things I can imagine waking up to. She still uses it to remind me to always be vigilant, and to lock my dorm room. Cue story. When my mom attended college, she lived in a regular student dorm, and back then, security was more basic than it is nowadays. She had a roommate that would often come home super late, drunk and high, and would forget to lock the dorm room, and it drove my mom crazy. It's one of those nights where a roommate came home drunk and passed out, forgetting to lock the door again. My mom is fast asleep, when some ninja instinct deep in her soul wakes her up. She doesn't move, but something feels weird, like she's being watched, and she somehow senses a presence nearby. Opening her eyes, she sees the shadowy figure of a man standing at the foot of her bed, watching her. And there's something in his hand that looks like a knife. My mom sits straight up, and the man dashes out of their room, just as my mom starts screaming at her roommate to wake up. Terrified, they called the police, who came in and investigated to see if they could find any evidence. They discovered that the man had peed in several spots around the room. There's no way to tell if this is the first time that the guy broke in, or if he had done it before. After that, her roommate always remembered to lock their door, and my mom stuffed the knife under her pillow. She constantly checks to make sure I'm remembering to lock my door too. I currently live in a college dorm. My mom says she's thankful that the guy fled as soon as she woke up, rather than attacking. Too long didn't read. Always lock your door, and thank God for my mom's ninja instincts.
Number 2.
When I was younger, my best friend lived down the street from me, maybe about 10 houses down. I was 13 and she was 11, and we'd always walk each other home every night after hanging out. One night, it was about 8 p.m., and it was time for me to go home. We walked down the street like usual, when this dark car slowly drove up to us. We paid no attention until this car full of grown men started catcalling us. We got a little nervous and picked up our pace, but it was nothing we hadn't dealt with before. All of a sudden, 2 of the men got out of the car and started running after us at full speed. Luckily, we had been a little further down the street at that point, and we took off, We outran them and turned into my house. Although looking back now, that was a dumb move. And it scared them off. My dad came out to see what was going on because our front door was open and he could hear us through the screen door. The car was gone by the time it came out, but it was super terrifying. Now as an adult, it's even scarier thinking about what could have happened.
Number 1.
This just happened yesterday, and I'm still confused and baffled from the events. I had made spaghetti. I have an aunt who's a big fan of spaghetti, and since she's pregnant, I decided to bring her some. We're no more than a 5-minute drive apart. I parked on her driveway and begin my way to the front door. Spaghetti in hand, I walk up to the front porch steps. Just as I'm about to knock on the door, I heard an unfamiliar voice behind me. I turn and see a man, maybe in his late 40s, in the car. It was an old, rusty car. It had a trailer hooked to the back end of it, his head poking from the window. He calls to me. "Excuse me, miss," he calls, waving at me. "Yes, sir?" I said, trying not to sound scared. He then looks around, looking at the empty road in front and behind him. Then he fixates his eyes back on me. "Miss, are you looking for a toilet?" Completely confused by his question, it took me a few seconds to respond. Looking for a toilet? What the hell? No, sir," I say, slowly turning back to the door, thinking our odd conversation was finished. Though, the man calls me again. "Miss?" I didn't want to turn and speak to the man again, but I also didn't want to possibly anger him by ignoring him. I turned back to the man, still seated in the car, head still peeking from the window. "Excuse me, miss, do you live here?" he asks, gesturing his head towards the house behind me. "No, I don't. I'm just visiting family," I replied. I really wanted this conversation to be over. I wanted the man to just drive off and leave me alone. "All right, miss," he said, a smile spreading across his face. His smile didn't make him seem less creepy. If anything, I was weirded out even more. I just did an awkward smile and turned back to the door. I knocked on the door. No answer. I rang the doorbell. Still no answer. I had let my aunt know I was coming over with spaghetti for her. She was expecting me. From the corner of my eye, I see the man still in his car, watching me. I didn't want to turn around. I didn't want him to know that I had noticed him. I just kept my eyes on the door, hoping my aunt would open the door so I'd be away from the man. I heard an engine revving behind me. Yes, the man was leaving, I thought. This time, I turned back around, expecting the car not to be there anymore. Though, there it was. He seemed to have only driven a few feet. I could see him staring at me from the side mirror, his eyes locked on me. Terrified, I knocked on the door even harder, rang the doorbell numerous times. I could feel the man watching me from his car. I wanted to call him out, tell him to fuck off, leave me alone, but I knew that would have angered him. Maybe he would have tried something. I'm a small female. I knew I had no chance of defending myself if he came at me. I pulled out my phone and dialed my aunt's number. No answer. I stood in front of the door a few more minutes and knocked a few more times. I knew there was going to be an answer, but I was too scared to move with the man still watching. Finally, another car came driving towards us, and I hoped that it would scare him off. And it did. He drove off quickly, not looking back. I let out a deep breath. I didn't even know I was holding it in. He was gone. I gave up on waiting for my aunt, and she called back, apologizing. Turns out she wasn't home at the time. So, to the creep asking me if I was looking for a toilet, I hope we never meet again, weirdo. Hello, brothers and sisters of the Night Army. Thank you for sticking around until the end. I really do appreciate it. Have you written any true scary stories or creepypastas that you want me to read? If so, you can email me at edgeofnightnarrations@gmail.com. Want to join the Night Army? Demolish that subscribe button. And if you want notifications, give that bell a good ring. If not, just keep in mind that I upload every weekend. I'm also on Discord and Twitter if you want to check me out there. Thanks again for watching, and remember,
Monsters aren't the only thing that lurk in the dark.